60 miles an hour. Open ocean, no lights, 4 engines wide open. A helicopter comes down on the boat's left side. A man leans out of the door with a .50 caliber rifle. And he is not aiming at the boat. He is aiming at the engines. That shot has now been fired more than 1,000 times. It is legal, it is routine, and it is not the Navy. It is not Delta Force. It is the smallest of America's 6 armed services, the one most people picture handing out life jackets. This is every weapon the U.S. Coast Guard's tactical teams actually use, and every frame you're about to see is real Coast Guard footage. Start with the sentence that explains all of it. Title 14 of the United States Code, Section 522. The Coast Guard may make inquiries, examinations, inspections, searches, seizures, and arrests upon the high seas. And then the phrase that matters. It may use all necessary force to compel compliance. Read that again, because it is the reason this unit exists. Since 1878, the Posse Comitatus Act has barred federal soldiers from policing Americans. The Army cannot arrest you. The Navy cannot arrest you. There are 6 armed forces of the United States: Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and Space Force, Coast Guard, and exactly one of them is written into law as a police force. It is also the smallest. Fewer than 50,000 people on active duty, and the only one of the 6 that can arrest you. That is the service. Now the weapons. Chapter 1. The Flying Snipers. In 1998, the Coast Guard was stopping less than 10% of the cocaine moving toward the United States by sea, and the reason was embarrassingly simple. The smugglers' go-fast boats were faster than the cutters chasing them. A cutter would find a target, order it to stop, and then watch it leave. The Commandant, Admiral James Loy, told the aviation community to solve it. A lieutenant commander named Mark Torres took 10 volunteers and 7 months. On the proving deployment, they met 5 go-fast boats and stopped 17 smugglers arrested, more than 1.5 tons of cocaine, 5.5 tons of marijuana, on a leased helicopter. What they built is called HITRON, the Helicopter Interdiction Tactical Squadron, based in Jacksonville, Florida. It began as a classified prototype, and today it is the only unit in the world authorized to use force from a helicopter for law enforcement. The sequence is published, and it is worth walking through, because every step of it is designed to avoid the next one. The helicopter closes in. The crew orders the boat to stop. Radio, siren, loudhailer, hand signals, in English and in Spanish. If the boat keeps running, the door gunner fires warning shots across the bow with an M240, 7.6, 2mm. If it still keeps running, the precision marksman shoots the engines. 2 rifles have done that job. The original was the Robar RC-50, a bolt-action .50 caliber with a laser sight. Today, the aviation gunner shoots a semi-automatic Barrett M107. The target is not the hull and not the crew. It is the outboard motors hanging off the back, a target the size of a suitcase from a moving helicopter above a boat that is trying not to be hit. The Coast Guard does not publish the range, and it does not publish the round count. What it publishes is the sequence, and the sequence is the point. The warning always comes first. On the 25th of August, 2025, a HITRON detachment flying from the cutter Midget, 372 nautical miles southwest of Acapulco, ordered a go-fast to stop. It did not stop. The warning shots did not work. The marksman disabled the engines, and the boarding team took 3,600 pounds of cocaine off it. That was interdiction number 1,000. Since 1999, the squadron has taken $33.2 billion of narcotics off the water. 26 years, an interdiction roughly every 9 days. And here is the number that shows what happened to the drug trade. The first 500 interdictions took 18 years. The second 500 took 8. Chapter 2. The team that gets on the boat. Stopping a vessel is not the same as taking it. That job belongs to the Maritime Security Response Team, MSRT, the Coast Guard's counterterrorism and high-risk boarding force. There are two, MSRT East in Chesapeake, Virginia, and MSRT West in San Diego. It is built like a small assault unit. A direct action section does the entry, with a breacher, a medic, a communicator, and a precision marksman inside the team. A separate marksman observer element covers from above. A tactical delivery team runs the rigid hull inflatables that put the assaulters alongside a moving ship in the dark. Where they learn it says something. The Coast Guard's tactical operators train at the Special Missions Training Center at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, a United States Marine Corps base. The entry course runs 8 weeks, 4 weeks of advanced combat marksmanship, then 4 weeks of close quarters combat. After that come the specialist courses: precision marksman, close quarters combat instructor, tactical coxswain, tactical bow gunner, crew-served weapons. Their weapons are harder to pin down than you would expect, and I am not going to guess. The Coast Guard does not publish an authorized small arms list. Standard boarding teams have carried the M16A2 and the M4 carbine for decades. The tactical teams have been photographed working with the Mark 18, a 10.3-inch carbine, the same short barrel the Navy built for fighting inside ships. Shotguns are in the inventory for breaching, but no official document names the model, so I will not put one on the screen. There is one comparison people always reach for, and it is the wrong one. MSRT is not the Coast Guard's Delta Force, and it is not part of Special Operations Command. The Coast Guard has no component in SOCOM at all. Delta and DevGRU exist to kill or capture. MSRT exists to board, arrest, and hand the case to a federal prosecutor. The man on the trigger is a law enforcement officer, and everything he does has to survive a courtroom. Chapter 3. The detachment that rides someone else's warship. This is the part of the Coast Guard almost nobody knows about, and it is the purest expression of what the service is for. A United States Navy destroyer cannot arrest anyone. It can find a smuggler, it can track him, it can put a boat in the water. But the moment it becomes a police action, the Navy has no authority. So the Coast Guard puts a team aboard. They are called Law Enforcement Detachments, LEDETs, 10 to 12 people, deployable in hours, and they ride Navy ships, Allied ships, and partner nation ships for 45 to 90 days at a time. They have been doing it since 1982. In the Gulf War, 10 detachments ran or supported around 60% of roughly 600 boardings. They have worked counter-piracy off Somalia and counter-narcotics across the Eastern Pacific. Their parent units are the Tactical Law Enforcement Teams, TACLET South in Florida and TACLET Pacific in San Diego. So when you see footage of a warship stopping a drug boat, look at who climbs the ladder. Very often, it is not the Navy at all. Chapter 4. The Pistol That Went the Other Way. In 2017, the Army chose Sig Sauer and adopted the M17 and M18. The Marine Corps followed. The Navy followed. The Air Force followed. In September 2020, the Coast Guard announced its new service pistol, and it was not a SIG at all. It was the Glock 19 Gen 5 MOS, 9mm, bought on an existing Customs and Border Protection contract. It replaced a Sig Sauer P229D AK in .40 caliber that had been the standard since 2006. The Coast Guard has never publicly explained why it broke from the rest of the armed forces, and when reporters asked, it declined to comment. The compact size and the optic-ready slide are the obvious answers for a service that works in small boats and civilian clothes. But officially, there is no answer. Chapter 5. the guns that are bolted down. The tactical teams are one half of this arsenal. The other half is mounted on ships. On the national security cutters, 418 feet, the largest ships in the fleet, the main gun is a Mark 110 57 millimeter, backed by a Phalanx close-in weapon system, 4 50 calibers, and 2 M240s. On the fast response cutters, the main gun is a Mark 38 25 millimeter, remotely operated and stabilized, with 4 crew-served 50 calibers. Port security units, the deployable reserve force that guards harbors overseas, train on the Mark 1940 millimeter grenade launcher. Look at the pattern in all of it. A warning gun before a disabling gun, a shot at an engine instead of a hull, a boarding team instead of a strike. Every weapon on this list was chosen to make something stop, not to make something disappear. Because at the end of it, there has to be a defendant, a seizure, and a case. And the service is about to reorganize around exactly that. On the 1st of October 2026, the Coast Guard stands up the Special Missions Command in Kearneysville, West Virginia, pulling MSRT, TACLET, MSST, the port security units, the dive lockers, and the National Strike Force under one roof for the first time. The Commandant called it forging the service's most elite operators into a single instrument. The Coast Guard has been armed since 1790. Since Alexander Hamilton asked Congress for 10 cutters to chase smugglers, 8 years before the United States had a Navy at all. It took 236 years to put those operators under one command. If you want to see the pistol chapter of this story in full, every sidearm the American military has trusted in over a century. That breakdown is on your screen right now.